Our research says that around 90% of people access local news on a regular basis. And although the most popular way of accessing local news is television, the internet is becoming much more important, and about a third of people access local news on the internet on a regular basis. People want to get hold of real-time news and information, and the internet can deliver that in a way that local newspapers or local radio or local television cannot. So the internet is almost tailor-made for local news and the needs that local news serves. That's why it has become so popular. I think one of the problems is that local news needs to survive, and the internet has also taken away one of the key ways that local news makes money, which is local classified advertising. And so one of the big challenges for local media in sort of getting to this new world is finding ways that it can use the internet to generate revenue. Well, what we've been showing for the last 2 or 3 years in the Communications Market Report is how smartphone and tablet adoption is changing the way people access and consume media. And so we've seen for the first time over half of consumers now say they own a smartphone, but about a quarter now own a tablet computer. And tablets in particular are very interesting because whereas people were using the internet to access local news in a largely text-based format, tablets now make it much more visual format, and so there are huge opportunities to develop and generate news and information, and not just using text. And what's really happening is that there's been this shift in local news provision, which has been far more radical than in other parts of the news media, and that's been driven by the economics of local news, because the classified advertising, motoring, jobs and property have gone away from local newspapers and are now towards Google and other providers. And so the availability of local news needs to be done in far more different, radical ways. And we saw the emergence of hyperlocal, particularly on a voluntary hyperlocal, as being very important. People value local media, they value local news and information, but there's also a really strong citizenship element that we recognise, particularly around people getting together, sharing their skills and setting up these sites, and in the way that it brings people together around specific issues and areas we think are very important. We're very interested in the ability that hyperlocal has to deliver public purposes, particularly around delivering impartial news and information, and delivering sort of citizenship outcomes. So we followed it very carefully, and we've also given advice and shared research on the project. And in fact, last year we published some of the first findings from the Creative Citizen project in our Communications Market Report. And some of the work we did with Creative Citizen showed that there are something like 400 hyperlocal sites that have been registered. We think it's important to keep an eye on that and look at what they're doing and looking at what success looks like and how they can share best practice. But it's an area that we're very important. We're very keen on keeping an eye on, and we think it's very important, particularly with all the changes going on in local media and particularly in local newspapers.